Hi, my name is Nate Speare. I'm a practicing astrologer, consultant, and astrological researcher, and I'm here again this week to give you an idea of some of the cosmic weather that's going to be happening over the course of the next week, and also to give you a little bit of maybe a tiny story if we're lucky and if we have time, and also body-mind meditation for the week that might be helpful. So last week we talked a lot about Chiron, the wounded healer, and how much of the week was about wounds and instincts and body feelings coming forward and maybe things from the past coming forward. And I hate to break it to you, but this week is about much of a similar content in the sense that Chiron isn't going to be another player this week, and we're especially getting the opportunity to experience a transformative energy in regards to our relationships and in regards to how we feel emotionally nurtured by being in relationship. There's a sense that, we have Scorpio season coming up, and one of the big key words and themes with Scorpio, the month of Scorpio, is transformation on a very profound level. And right now we have a lot of Scorpio energy going on in the air, but sort of, only when you look and peel the curtain back and look beneath the surface. So there's a sense that we're actually being prepared for Scorpio season by having like a double whammy of that transformative and sometimes deep and dark energy right now, which could indicate that we're in for a very intense month in November. So stay tuned. But right now we have in the sky, we have Venus, the planet and the goddess of beauty, love, eroticism, fine arts, magnetism, desire, seduction. We have Venus trining, which is a supportive angle, making a trine to Chiron, who we talked about last week, the wounded healer. So we've got the goddess of love and beauty and seduction making a supportive aspect to Chiron. Venus is in Scorpio, Chiron is in Pisces. So these are both water signs. So there's a sense that there's this very watery energy around our desire and also around our wounds and our capacity to heal our own wounds. There's a sense that we have the opportunity to let the waters of our desire flow with our wounds flowing with them, and also vice versa. Let the waters of our wounds flow with our desires, kind of infusing those. So we have the opportunity to kind of investigate our relationships in this way. This has some great implications for uncovering either any hidden desires or any hidden wounds or feelings of hurt in our one-to-one relationships. And there's the sense, the key here is that it's a harmonious angle. So it's not, this is a good week to actually take advantage of and harness that energy. Rather than being challenging and being, a lot of friction and a lot of overwhelm and frozenness and fear, that because there's what's called a trine between Venus and Chiron, that actually provides us with some harmonious support to look at past wounds and to also look at how past wounds and the impulse to heal those wounds sort of work in a stream with our present desires, right? So that means we're aware of desire, we're aware of things that are pulling and magnetizing us, and we're also aware of compassion and care, both self-care, self-compassion, and compassion for others in our lives as well. And both of those are very important. It's not about prioritizing one at the expense of the other, but there is the sense of being present to the one that we might be stuffing down a little bit more, or the side of that we might not be as honest with ourselves about in the present moment. So that's a big thing that's going on this week. And another thing is the moon is really going along with those planets, because in the midweek the moon is going to be right there in Pisces up with Chiron, and the moon astrologically represents our intuitive and emotional style and how we get our emotional needs met. And all of this is kind of launching us, this transformative energy, wounds and desires flowing with each other. it's all leading up to a full moon happening next Saturday, and the full moon's going to be in Aries when the sun is in Libra. So full moons, as many of us may know, are when the lunar energy, or when the emotional and intuitive energy reaches its peak and reaches a kind of, this current lunar cycle reaches a sort of fruition during a full moon. And the fact that the moon is in Aries is really asking a lot of questions about the way that we're moving forward in our own lives in dialogue and in conversation with the relationships that we're engaged with, which include all kinds of relationships. You know, it's tempting to associate relationship with one word, but really all kinds, or one form of relationship rather, really all kinds are important. So all of this kind of deep, wounded, but also desirous energy preparing us for the full moon next weekend. And really the question that this full moon would be asking is the way that I am moving forward and pioneering, does this way of pioneering have the clarity, optimism, and relational energy needed? Does it have the kind of clarity, optimism, and relationship that supports a space for my emotional fulfillment? So, is the kind of clarity, optimism, and relationship that is present in the way that I'm moving forward creating enough space for my emotional safety and fulfillment? So that's kind of a really out there ABC way of putting the question. But we could look at it more intuitively. When the moon is full, it's going to be visiting Uranus, who is the liberator, the wild card, the revolutionary. The key word with Uranus is electricity. Uranus electrifies whatever visits it or touches it. So our emotional energy is being electrified. One of the key phrases with Uranus is sudden change. So given that we're talking about relationships, we're talking about wounds, and we're talking about things that are magnetizing or pulling us perhaps. Because remember, the sun is in Libra, which is the sign of relationship, the sign of all kinds of relationship. So Uranus bringing sudden change means that we could find that certain things in our lives, which could include relationships, could include projects, could include anything with which we're engaged, there might be a sudden change inflicted upon our endeavors in some way. But it's important to keep in mind not to be scared of this, not to be overwhelmed by it, but to know that sudden does not always mean profound. So there might be a sudden change on the surface, but that doesn't mean that it's the lasting, enduring, profound change that's taking place. That might just be something that's happening short term right now, but we can't actually know what the long term of that is, or how it's going to play out in the long term, or what precise emotional or physical repercussions that's going to have, because it's really, the energy is too unstable to really glean anything long term and lasting from it. So that's kind of the big lesson. It's really when we get more into Scorpio season that we may have more hints about the lasting, enduring changes and deeper transformations that are happening, right? So to not be fooled by the sudden quality of any changes that happen this week, because they might happen. You might see big or seemingly big shifts, but to not be too fooled or intimidated by them, because they might not be lasting. So, with all of that said, I would like to lead you in a guided meditation regarding how we can be somewhat present with these energies. and hopefully stabilize ourselves within the onslaught of emotional chaos that could be coming our way. So how we're going to do that this week is that, interestingly, each of these cosmic bodies that we're talking about, at least in medical and classical astrology, each of them have some sort of correspondence with the glands in the body, or the endocrine system. Each of these planets, we're talking about the Moon, Uranus, Venus, they're cosmic bodies that are said to correspond to certain glands. And so, what are the glands? What is the endocrine system? The endocrine system is spoken of a lot, actually, in parallel with the chakras, in that they're energy centers. Very scientifically, we can say that the glands are these sort of packets of energy that secrete hormones. But it's really the kind of packets of energy factor that can get our imaginations going a little bit. And so now I'm going to invite you to just sit upright. And by the way, I should really say this every time, to try to let go of the fear of doing any of these activities wrong. These are somatic activities, meaning that they have to do with a first-person experience of the body and of the connection between the body and the intention, or also known as the body and the mind. So we're really just directing our awareness toward our body. It's not a sort of precise right or wrong kind of thing. Now, with that said, to get specific, let's just plant both feet on the floor and have the sense that you're sitting on your sits bones. So really sort of, you can feel that bony part of your butt right underneath you, and your spine sort of stacked on top of your sits bones. Your chin just slightly tucked to make the back of the neck a bit longer. And we're going to go one by one through the glands, through some of the major glands. I won't touch on all of them because there are just many, many. But now consider that from your sits bones to the crown of your head, there is a line just sort of shooting up out of the crown of your head, and also, if you will, shooting down in a way that's grounded through your sits bones. And this line has the capability of radiating light out of it. Now the glands, which we're going to touch into, are known for being sometimes wild and containing a lot of emotional, frenetic energy. So if you feel in any moment that you're getting too wild, you can always just imagine that with each gland we're dealing with a dimmer pack, like a dimmer of light, that if you turn the dimmer up, you make the light brighter, and if you turn the dimmer down, you're making the light lower. So if you ever feel that it's getting to be too much, you can always turn the dimmer down. So we're going to start really at the base of our spine, actually down, almost down in your butt, like down in the back of your butt, down in the coccyx, the gland called the coccygeal body. So way down. Imagine that you have a dimmer pack down in the coccygeal body, and that you're turning the dimmer up. Giving some energy down in the base of the spine. And now moving up, breathing, remembering to breathe. So breathing down into the base of the spine. As the dimmer goes up and increases the light. And now moving up, around the area in between the ribs and the navel, we have the adrenal glands. So adrenal, we think of adrenaline. And just direct your mind and your breath into the adrenals, or what we feel when we get into fight or flight mode, but also they carry supportive energy. So breathing into the adrenals and turning the dimmer up. And again, if you feel your adrenaline going a little bit crazy, you can always turn that dimmer down. And moving up to the pancreas, which is sometimes said to correspond to the solar plexus chakra, or to correspond to decision making. Breathing into the pancreas. And turning that dimmer pack of light up. Moving up a little bit. Near the heart, there are glands called the heart bodies. So they carry much energy of things associated with the heart, like love and compassion. So breathing into, first very broadly, we could say the chest, but then really specifying our intention to include the heart bodies. And then moving up, in the throat, we have the thyroid. And sending some breath turning up that dimmer pack. And now, corresponding to vision, we have the pituitary. So feeling our body breathing, resting our attention in this sort of forehead area between the eyes and the pituitary. And then one above that, we have the pineal. Sending our breath and our intention to the crown of the head. Turning up the dimmer pack on these head glands as well. And just resting there a moment. Knowing that in the back we have the mammillary gland. Sending our intention and our breath to the mammillary and turning up the light on the dimmer pack to the head glands as well. And now just resting there for a moment with our feet still firmly planted on the ground. Just gently guide your intention toward that axis, going from top of the head to the bottom of the tail, radiating light from all of these gland centers that we just touched. And with that line, or that axis, let's also give ourselves the gift of now turning down those dimmer packs a little bit. Letting ourselves do what we call the gentle breath, where with the awareness of all the centers that we just touched, now we're just going to simply let our body breathe. That this breath is not manipulated at all. We're listening to how our body wants to breathe and simply following. It doesn't have to be deep, it can be shallow. And feeling, or just being aware that each of these different centers on a cellular level breathe with our breath. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little wired. So why do we work with the glands? Well, the glands are said to be a bridge to feeling.